firms like Cetera and certainly Genstar at that level, at the private equity level, we see a lot of value there because we are already a well-oiled engine inside Cetera. So we know that when we bring on this number of advisors and these number of assets, that we're going to be able to help them run better, faster, stronger.
That's Lori Hardwick talking about Cetera's announcement that they're acquiring the independent financial planning channel of insurer Voya Financial and their 900 advisors. I spoke to Lori about what went on behind the scenes at Genstar Capital as they were evaluating Voya's business, the reasons they thought it would be a good fit with Cetera, her thoughts on trends in the broker-dealer space, and a whole lot more on this episode of the Wealth Tech Today podcast. Welcome to the Wealth Tech Today podcast. I'm your host, Craig Iskowitz. I'm the founder and CEO of Ezra Group. We're a consulting firm that helps wealth managers, asset managers, and wealth tech vendors make better business and technology decisions. This podcast features interviews, news, analysis on the trends and best practices in wealth management technology. And be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss future episodes. I'm happy to introduce my guest for this episode is Lori Hardwick, CEO of Wealth Tech for Red Rock Strategic Partners. Lori, hey, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Craig. Excited to be here today.
I'm excited to have such an industry expert, one of the co-founders of Envestnet, someone who's got so much experience and is so much in demand in the industry on the program. So glad you're here.
Aw. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. I know we've got a lot to talk about. Lots has changed since the last 2 years since we talked last.
I have been introducing people and saying, boy, it's so boring out there. And what's going on with you? I don't have anything to talk about. Like as a tongue in cheek, but because there's never a shortage of things to talk about. And,
I know.
We scheduled this weeks ago and it just is perfect timing. Like, boom, we get to talk about Cetera buying Voya, big news in the broker space.
I know. We are so excited about this. It's a fantastic marriage. I'm very excited about this. And for those who don't know, I'm on the Cetera board. I was joined the board last February, I believe, right before the world came crashing down. Mm-hmm. And we have had, a number of things that have gone on within that organization, all very positive and under the direction of Adam Antoniadis. He's just the whole team has done an amazing job. But this Voya acquisition, we really wanted this one. And I just can't tell you how excited we are to have been the winner.
And the deal is for 900 independent financial professionals with $40 billion in assets going to Cetera, which they're paying, according to the news reports, roughly $300 million, which is a number that keeps getting thrown around. An earlier deal, I think the Waddell and Reed deal was also $300 million, just a coincidence. But can you talk? Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what boards you're on? Because you've pivoted your career a bit. Maybe you can talk about that. So just talk. We all know about Envestnet. Everyone knows that. So from Envestnet until now, just like the quick overview.
What happened? So I left Envestnet in 2016, was wooed away by Pershing to be COO at the parent company level there. Great opportunity and really just an extension of learning that never stopped from day one that I joined that firm. Then went to start my own company called AI Labs or Advisor Innovation Labs. It was, I started that with Mike Zabrowski, who had been COO of eMoney for many, many years. And so we were building a fintech firm really designed for enterprises to bring in all of the best of breed technology in one spot. We sold that company, interestingly, on March 6th,
Mm.
2020. So we
Perfect
really
timing.
timed that one up well.
Mm.
And
To
so
InvestNet,
after that,
right? You sold it to
yes,
InvestNet.
back to
Let's not
InvestNet.
leave that
Yep.
out.
Yes, to InvestNet. And that's where Mike continues to work.
Mhm.
At that point, I had, while I was at AI Labs, I had been doing some work for private equity companies when they were looking at new deals. And so, for example, I helped Lightyear Capital with Cerity, which at the time was HPMP there in Chicago, which is now a $28 billion. They've been on a tear at RIA. And then I was also helping Lightyear with even just like, new deals that they were sometimes won and sometimes didn't
Mhm.
win. I was working as an advisor to Advent International and other private equity companies
And
along
they're
the way.
huge. Advent is a gigantic PE
Yeah,
firm.
they are. They have a great team. I was really impressed. I have to say, going into working with private equity folks, I was feeling very vulnerable and not so sure I would be the perfect match for them. But I love it. I absolutely love working on those private equity deals, helping whoever I'm working with at the time, helping those partners really find the value. And they really appreciate kind of the fact I've been in an operating role and understanding where, kind of the nuggets of value can be found and or where the potential problems are. After after we sold AI Labs, I decided I really wanted to work just with one private equity company. I didn't want to keep getting calls, just willy-nilly. And at that point, I had just recently engaged with Genstar, looking at the Brinker deal, and Genstar Capital, you know, gave me a great offer to join them as a strategic advisor. And so I interviewed a couple other companies, but I chose Genstar because their talent is amazing. They're based out of San Francisco. It's a younger team, and I just meshed with their style. Their style is very much in line with how I like to work, and just being really open and upfront and transparent about whatever it is. And we have had a great run. We put together, as I think probably everyone knows at this point, but Orion and Brinker. I was part of that deal team. And then now I'm on the Orion board as well. So I continue to be on Riskalyze's board, and I'm their chairman. And then I'm also on Vestwell's board, which is a retirement platform run by Aaron Shum, a turnkey asset management platform. They've been doing phenomenally well as well. So
Aaron's
I'm
awesome. I
really
just had him on
excited
the program
about.
a couple of weeks ago. Aaron's great.
Oh, you did. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. That's right. He's
How can you
amazing.
forget about Aaron? Aaron's amazing. Yeah, and so you got a bunch of board involvement. You got the PE involvement. So let's wind it back. Let's talk about Cetera and Voya. So how did it come about? What made you guys target Voya for this acquisition?
Well, Voya came to the market. I mean, they had investment bankers. It wasn't that we were out of the blue targeting them. But we did decide as soon as we saw the deck that this was a great, marriage for us to try to pursue. I think that Voya, of course, Cetera has a long history of working with financial institutions.
Mhm.
And so from that perspective, it was a great fit. Tom Halloran is president there, and he had connections with myself as well as Adam and many others on the board. And, of course, during the course of this, we all talked to Tom. I will say the team at Cetera did an amazing job of, this all got spun up around Christmas time. They were working through nonstop through the holidays, really precious time that would have been spent with their families. So I just give the team at both Cetera and Voya kudos for really putting this opportunity, kind of prioritizing it, I guess is what I'm saying. And, even the night of the deal, it went till 4:30 in the morning for, before it was signed. So
Mhm.
it was I think a critical deal for us. We were very excited to get it for a number of reasons, mostly because the cultural fit is perfect for us. We love the people. They seem to really like the group at Cetera. And I think that as we build on this, there's a lot of new things that we'll be able to bring to those Voya advisors. We have coaches, we have practice management, we've got embedded marketing in the platform. There's a whole bunch of really cool new things to help those advisors continue to connect and better connect with their clients. So I think we're headed for, we came out of the gate fast in 2021, and I think we're going to continue that ramping up, I believe.
So was there anything else besides the cultural fit when you saw the deck that Voya's bankers were sending out? What was it that sort of jumped out at you guys? Say we need to grab these guys and really fight for it. I'm sure there were other suitors that were in the bidding.
Yeah, there's always other suitors,
Mm.
especially in this environment. It is really hard to get good firms like Voya. It's a very competitive environment right now.
Mm.
But they had a lot of stability within their platform and their programs. A lot of the same home office folks had been there, running and operations folks, as well as the advisors. They didn't have a lot of attrition that was coming out of that firm. So when we look at anything, we're looking for a stable environment for which we can then fortify with new tools and solutions and services to help them grow. But we don't like to see instability. And that really played well for Voya.
How do you see this as part of a trend of insurance companies, which 20 years ago seemed to be swarming into the IBD space as do cross-selling products, and now are sort of backing out? Like MetLife sold their business, and here's ING sold theirs, and then here's Voya selling theirs.
Yeah.
What is that trend, and what do you think is driving that?
Well, I think, it's a great question, Craig. I think that a lot of firms, realize that they have assets as part of their, you know, total package within, these insurance companies and banking companies. And you could add to that list, BMO Harris sold their, broker dealer as well. So I think that as they look at the multiples they can get for some of these divisions within their larger entity, it's hard to say no. It's easy to kind of say, what could we get for that asset, and where are we today? I also think that the changing risk metrics on these businesses definitely play into that discussion as to whether or not, with the new uh, change in political sides here. I know that there's a lot of expectation that there'll be more potentially rigid rules, regulations that are put in place against our industry. And I think some of them are like, hey, if we can get that money for it and we don't have to take on more risk or worry about, getting penalized for XYZ, who knows what it'll be, we'll dump the asset. So firms like Cetera and certainly Genstar at that level, at the private equity level, we see a lot of value there because we are already a well-oiled engine inside Cetera. So we know that when we bring on this number of advisors and these number of assets, that we're going to be able to help them run better, faster, stronger, and more efficiently, which is the most important part.
All those things are important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, building them into the scale of the bigger engine is, we have that on our side right now at Cetera. We're a big engine and it's well oiled. We're ready to
And
roll.
scale is really becoming the name of the game. if you look at all the competitors, at the top broker dealers are getting bigger and bigger. Whether it's LPL at 17,000 advisors, Advisor Group I think is over 10,000 advisors, and
Mhm.
now Cetera is approaching 10,000. You're at 9,000
Mhm.
now, and that
Mhm.
there's some who said that's the key threshold for going public. Do you see that is that is that something you think Cetera's goal, one of their goals, is to go public?
That's not on our radar right now. I wouldn't rule anything out. But that is not on our radar right now. Our radar is pretty clear as to what our directives are and how to continue to grow the business under Genstar's umbrella.
Hmm. There's been a raft. There's been a lot of PE firms moving in and acquiring broker dealers or acquiring parts of broker dealers. What is it about the broker dealer business model that PE firms see so attractive?
Well, you know, I think that you would see two sides of the coin here. In the private equity world, there's some that actually do not believe in the broker dealer world and the ability to continue to grow a BD, because there's a lot of metrics out there showing that RIAs are kind of the wave of the future, and that's the way the
Mhm.
puck is moving. So I think that whenever someone's looking at a broker dealer, obviously they're looking at scale. They're looking at the stability of that firm, of course, but they're also looking for how to either stop the attrition out into RIA world or into other firms, or they're looking for ways to grab market share outside of where they currently are. So you don't buy a firm just to kind of keep it as is.
Mhm.
It's always to grow and to
Yes.
fortify with something else. So I think that a lot of the firms see broker dealers as, these firms that haven't had a lot of resources in the past, or maybe they haven't been able to put a lot more money into the infrastructure of the firm to make them run cleaner and faster. I know that, the way that technology has changed everything, like Jiffy AI, for example, run by Babu Sivadasan, who is a longtime friend, and we worked together at InvestNet for 15 years. He just started a firm called Jiffy AI, and there's like two or three new firms like that are doing business process automation at the home office level, and that is where I think these private equity firms, as they think about getting into these large institution BD businesses, say, how do we streamline it and make it faster and be able to continue to obviously thrill and delight the advisors and their clients, but also run faster on the back end and more efficiently. And so scale just can't be scale anymore. It has to actually reduce your cost to serve eventually. So you can't be touching every piece of data like we used to be able to. But now that these new technologies have come out, it's allowed you to build in a lot more efficiencies and be able to do work not just faster, but at way less expense than it used to cost.
Hey, I want to take a break from this episode to talk about one of my favorite charities, the Invest in Others Charitable Foundation. Invest in Others is a nonprofit that supports and empowers financial advisors who give back to their communities with overwhelming generosity. Now in its 15th year, Invest in Others has raised and distributed millions of dollars to worthy charities that are run by or assisted by financial advisors both in the U.S. and abroad. The Invest in Others Foundation is kicking off 2021 with a Restock the Shelves campaign. This past year, demand for food from nonprofits was at an all-time high. Last year, more than 50 million people experienced food insecurity. Now that the holiday season has ended, supplies at many food banks and shelters have dropped, but demand has not. To help restock the shelves, Invest in Others will award grants of up to $20,000 to nonprofits who are fighting hunger in their communities. If you work in the financial services industry and also volunteer for a 501c3 nonprofit that's in need of food items, apply for a grant from the Invest in Others Foundation on its behalf. They want to help you restock the shelves in your community this January. Applications will be accepted now through Friday, February 5th at investinothers.org/grants. So if you want to put your 501c3 nonprofit's name in for a grant of up to $20,000, please go to investinothers.org/grants.
Indeed, yeah, it's everything's getting cheaper, whether it's building
Yeah,
software, deploying services in the cloud. A lot of the infrastructure is now becoming much more mobile. And of
right,
course, everything's digitizing. So it's easier to spin up more technology. When in the past you'd had to do these very long deployments, touch every desktop, go to every
right.
office to deploy software into with a disk or a CD, and now it's all online and managed centrally. So it does
Yeah.
lend itself. It gives you both ways. You see the smaller firms are starting up faster because it's easier to start an RIA since you
Mhm.
don't need to have all this on-premise equipment. But it's also easier when you're scaling a larger business that you can build out your infrastructure faster, cheaper, and manage this and take advantage of scale. So yeah, tools
Yeah.
like AI are important. And I had Babu on the program last year. I think his product is spot on in terms of
Yeah.
what we need in space now.
I totally agree. I am an advisor to them as well, and they are, I think, doing something that is necessary for not just broker dealers, but like you said, also RIAs. I mean, the end clients are demanding, this hyper personalization in a much faster way than we ever have been able to deliver it before. So the fact that there are tools that are coming out that allow us to do that and to be able to respond to end clients in a way that they expect to be responded to, and to have, different processes go through it, really lightning speed. It allows us to be, I think, much more nimble as an industry, which is why I love working with that firm.
When I see any industry, especially in financial services, there's a pendulum swing, and there's always a cycle of growth and then uh, disruption.
Hmm.
And we saw this in a while back before the last financial crisis, or multiple crises ago, where a lot of the firms that were household names got broken up or acquired. And now we're seeing it again. The top 25 broker dealers now controls over 70% of advisors work
Hmm.
at the top 25 broker dealers. So you're seeing the scale growing and the consolidation really growing. But that, while you think, well, that becomes very powerful, that also creates opportunities for disruption, that they get so big that they can't move fast enough to handle new things, whether it's new technologies or new business models or new assets like cryptocurrencies and things. So where do you see
Yeah.
disruption coming?
I see this happens, this is the age old story of the wirehouses too, and why they've
Mhm.
been mired in legacy technology and not been able to move quite as fast as the independent BDs. And now we see it, like you said, as the independent BDs get bigger and bigger, it kind of slows the ability to pivot and take on new things. But I will say, when you look at what firms used to want to hold proprietary and build on their own, that has changed a lot. Even the wirehouses, and definitely at Cetera and all of their top end competitors on the broker dealer market, are starting to outsource the data normalization, outsourcing the data lake, figuring out ways to work in a much more nimble way and feed that data back and forth. So APIs obviously accelerated that notion a whole lot when they
Mm.
became available. What I do see is that the proprietary nature now seems to be more on how they render that data out to the end clients. I think so many firms had, they were using InvestNet or using, they were all kind of using Morningstar or InvestNet, one of two or three options. And that patience of having kind of the same web interface with the client and or advisor seems to be wearing thin. Those firms, I know at Cetera, we have AdviceWorks, which is an amazing scalable front end for advisors to do the work and also for clients to see what they have with that advisor. And so when I was at InvestNet, we frequently talked about, we want to be the hub, because as
Mhm.
long as we're the hub, people have to keep coming back to us, and it makes for such a sticky client. And it did. But now I think the firms are like, with APIs, we're going to modularize the, the pieces and components that we want from each platform and build our own experience with the end client. And that's the part, and that's kind of the fun part too. I think developers like building that part more than they do the data lake and data normalization and all that piece. But I think it's a pivot in the way that, where these firms are spending their money. Rather than spending it on headcount, they're outsourcing it.
Which is good for consultants. And if I can give a plug to my company, we just launched a new service with Extiva Financial, which is, we mentioned data normalization, data lakes, and data outsourcing. We're seeing more firms having trouble with their data architectures and infrastructures, and they can't bring in new technology. I'm sure you saw this at InvestNet. They sign a contract, then you go to install them, then their data is a mess, and their infrastructure is a mess, and they don't understand how their architecture works, and they've got too many silos. So we're launching a data as an asset assessment service to help firms get their data architecture, data infrastructure in order. So it links right up with your talk about outsourcing that and how firms are seeing that as not a value added anymore.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think that, they feel like they need to own that piece. And in fact, I think a lot of them don't want to own that piece. They know that it can be, hard really hard to do at times. So, but you touched on something, Craig, that I find fascinating as far as, a lot of the older firms and with legacy are starting to buy new, new shiny firms that have a tool or a feature that is, going to help them grow out of that legacy technology. And I mean, we just saw it this week with InvestCloud and Tegra 118, and certainly Fanatics as well. They are, I think that watching that come together, I'm a big fan of bringing old technology and new technology together. And, typically the old technology folks have a lot of the clients that the new technology folks want to get. And so, and also it kind of stutter steps any of the old technology clients that were thinking of leaving. Frequently they will say, I'm going to hold out and just see how this goes, because migrating off a platform is not easy. I remember back in the InvestNet days in 2001, it was actually InvestNet's very first acquisition was PMC, Portfolio Management Consultants out of Denver. And they had $5.5 billion of assets. We had 300 million of assets at the time. And, that was probably the most pivotal move that Judd Bergman made and that team. I was worried because I'm like, this is going to change everything. We're not going to be a startup anymore. And yet it gave us kind of the credibility we needed to work with bigger firms, because we now had assets under management and we were able to really, bring up PMC and allow them the access to our new cool technology so they didn't lose those clients. So I have a soft spot in my heart every time I see kind of old technology meets new. And I do think there's a lot of value to that if you can execute against it right.
You mentioned that migrating tech platforms isn't easy, and it's something we work with a lot of firms on. And one of the things I like to say is inertia is a legacy tech's friend.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because that keeps a lot of companies on their platform, even if they hate it, because it's just so difficult and so expensive to convert.
Yeah, I think also some people lose the sight of spending a whole lot, this year could save us a whole lot more in years to come by making that change and migrating to the newer technology option. They just can't figure out a way to get out ahead of it and spend the money that they need to in order to really make the change for the greater good for many, many more years. So I do think that stands in the way, but for sure, just inertia and, when I went in, when I went into lots of different times to sell to enterprises, a lot of times the leadership wanted to do it. They saw the benefit and they were excited about, bringing on new technology, but it's typically the people behind the scenes, the operations and the developers and that, who are like, do not get in my way. I do not want this new thing for whatever reason. It's mostly protecting, I think, their own jobs. They are worried it would displace them. But, in my experience, most of the leadership, and certainly those who are disciplined leadership, push through that. But it typically is the people behind the scenes that are saying this won't work because of XYZ.
Well, no one likes to change, right? Most humans don't like change. And then what's the rule of thumb, the rule of thirds for change, where when you announce a change, a third of the people will be on board, a third of the people will hate it, and then you have a third in the middle that are like, whatever. So your goal is to get that other third that's in the middle onto your side, because the other third's always going to hate it, because it disrupts their routine, or maybe they were involved in the purchase or development of the system that's being replaced, so they see it as a threat and they see that they won't have a job. So or they don't want to change because change is hard, and it's hard to pivot your career, or if you have to, or even just change what you're doing. So those are big issues.
Yeah, I saw that.
Go back to something you mentioned. You were helping with the evaluation of the Motive Tegra 118 deal.
Yeah,
and
I was part of that deal.
Supplanted by another deal. So what do you think of the Tegra InvestCloud deal?
Well, I touched on this a little earlier, just the new technology and the old technology coming together. I think Tegra, it sounds like they're kind of going core back to their roots of the security APL and being the supermarket. I actually think that's a great idea for Tegra 118, and I'm very good friends with Cheryl Nash. In fact, we're meeting for digital happy hour tonight.
Digital happy hour.
Yeah, exactly. But she is, she's super talented. She has a talented team. I have no doubt they'll do well. I do think that marrying up with InvestCloud, who's done really well, lately, especially on the front end tools and kind of working through, they've got data, reporting, everything kind of built in there. I think that is, it depends how long it will take to get Tegra data and features and functionality kind of migrated into a InvestCloud option. But as soon as they do, I have no doubt they'll be massively successful. I really do think that's what Tegra needed to kind of push them forward and accelerate that business. So
if you look at the gaps, they seem to line up pretty well, especially in the strengths of InvestCloud in the client portal and digital wealth spaces.
Right. Yeah, we're having a similar view of, kind of old meets new in the Brinker Orion marriage that came together earlier this year. And, bringing in that TAMP space, Brinker is 32 years old. Orion is less than 10 years old. So, having those two companies, and of course I have a bird's eye view there being on their board. But that is another really exciting kind of old meets new technology inertia that we're seeing come together. I'm really excited to see that one come together. Lots of opportunities.
Two other great leaders getting together with Eric Clark and Noreen Beeman, right?
Yep, that's right. Those two are awesome. It's of all my boards, that's the one that I feel, kind of like it's home cooking for me, because it's a lot of platform business, and I feel very at home, and they're selling to the same clients that I sold to back at InvestNet forever ago. So it's nice because it's a lot of meeting up with old friends in the industry, that's for sure.
Well, Lori, we've run out of time. I knew we would do this, and we have because we never stop talking, and there's so much to talk about. So I really want to thank you for taking the time, and it's so good you got this perfect timing. We got to talk about these things. And where can people find more about? If they want to get you on their board, how do they reach out to you?
The easiest way is probably to email me. It's Lori.Hardwick at redrocksp for strategicpartners.com. But I will say I will probably take on one more board assignment, and then my dance card's full for a little while.
Okay, everyone out there, all firms, you've heard it. There's one slot left on Lori's dance card. If you want it, you better make a good offer to her. The bidding starts now.
See how I'm building that demand? Come on.
That's right.
Gotta give me
Hey,
kudos.
you're learning more. You're a fantastic marketer, self-promotion, branding, right? It's all about that. Cool.
Well,
Lori, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I always love talking to you, and certainly I know you've got an awesome list of viewers and listeners, and always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's Craig again. Boy, that was a good interview. I really liked that one. I love talking to Lori. Now, we could have gone on for another hour or two, but had to cut it short to fit in the time here. So I always like hearing the behind the scenes, what's going on in these deals, what's happening, why they liked it, and why they thought it was a good fit. Lori gave some great answers, good insight into what she was doing at Genstar. Also interesting to hear her decision-making process about why she chose Genstar over all the other PE firms that are out there, especially Lightyear and Advent, who are all really, those are awesome PE firms. Don't sell them short just because Lori didn't pick them. They are really very interesting. I've worked with Advent a little bit. Very smart people, really, really interesting firms to work with. And hearing her take on the insurance company trends, why they're leaving the space, some of her talk about different enterprise tools, Jiffy.ai and Babu, I've had him on the program. You should go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear more about how they're working business process automation. Interesting stuff. And consolidation begets disruption. How with so many percentage of brokers working at this top 25 broker dealers, that's really creating opportunities for disruption, at least in my opinion, although there may be some pain for the smaller broker dealers at first. And then I'm glad I fit in some comments from Lori on the Motive Tegra 118 and the Tegra 118 InvestCloud deal. Always interesting stuff going on. Always interesting. So thanks for listening to this episode of Wealth Tech Today podcast. You can find our newsletter and blog at EzraGroupLLC.com. And also we're on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. I'll talk to everyone again next time.